Hi there, this is Nick Devine, founder of the Print Coach and developer of the Elephant Hunting System, and welcome to this video. As an owner of a printing company or a manager in a printing company, you and I are similar in this context. We're constantly looking for strategies and tactics to drive up the bottom line profitability of our companies. And there are lots of things you can do that impact that, but there's one strategy that has a profound impact on your bottom line profits. And it's pretty easy and simple to understand, actually. And we're going to talk about that strategy in this video. And an easy way to introduce this idea is to relay a comment that one of my clients in my Elephant Hunting System program relayed to me about 3 weeks ago, so pretty recent. And here's what he said to me. He said, we were talking about his group of clients, and he said, pointing to a portfolio of clients, he said, that portfolio of clients contributes 123% of my profits. That's a really puzzling comment to make. The only way that comment could possibly make sense is there must be another group of clients over here that are leaking out 23% of the profits, so you end up with 100% by the time the year is done. So I'm going to share with you some data about a client list, just to give you some sense of what this might actually look like. So I'm holding in my hand a printed out list of a typical portfolio of clients that you might see in a printing company. Now this particular company has 508 customers, which would be pretty normal. So clients that spent money with them in the previous 12 months. Here's what's interesting. 6.3% of those clients, 6.3% of them only, contributed half of the revenue. That's an interesting number. Here's another interesting number. The bottom 50%, so half of those customers, only contributed 8.3% of the overall revenue in the company. So here's an interesting thing to think about. What would happen if I took half of those clients and said, we're going to get rid of those, and we're just going to focus our resources on the other 50% that remain? What would that do to the bottom line profitability of your business? And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. What you need to think about when you're analyzing the overall profitability and the overall customer base in your company. So let's go have a look at that now. The concept or principle behind the data we were just looking at is called the 80-20 principle, and it was initially developed by an Italian economist called Vilfredo Pareto, so sometimes called the Pareto principle or the 80-20 principle. And what he was doing is he was looking at the distribution of wealth across different geographies and different timelines in going back about 150 years ago. And what he discovered was that 20% of the population typically controlled about 80% of the wealth. And you see it turns up in all sorts of interesting places. So if you look at your wardrobe, you're probably wearing 20% of what's in there 80% of the time. If you look at the carpet in your house or your office, you're probably walking on 20% of it 80% of the time. If you look at your social circle, you're probably spending, I don't know, maybe 20% of your social circle, you're investing 80% of your time into. So it turns up in all sorts of interesting places. But it turns up particularly in business. And when I ask clients about this, most of them are familiar, at least many of them are familiar with the concept of 80-20. When I ask them how they're applying it in their business, a lot of people aren't particularly sure how to go about applying it in the business. So we're going to talk about how you apply 80-20 in the context of business development, because here's what you see. 20% of your customers are generating approximately 80% of your revenue. We look at that data I was just sharing with you a couple of minutes ago in the intro. We'll look at that again in a few minutes' time so you can see where it's turning up in your business. So the 80-20 we've discussed. Here's what's particularly interesting is it's possible that I'm not the first person to discover this, but I haven't heard other people talking about it, is there's another uneven distribution as well. So it's an extreme version of the 80-20, if you will. And what I came to realize looking at a lot of our clients' private data is here's what you notice is 5% of clients are typically contributing about 50% of the revenue and the lion's share of the profits. And the bottom 50% of a client's companies, so in your example, probably 50% of your clients are probably generating someplace in the region of 5% of your revenues. And what's interesting here is if you allocated the cost correctly, you're probably losing money on that 50% of your database, which is an interesting consideration to think about. So this is the data I was reading out to you when I was looking at that handout in the intro video. So just to recap this for you. So what we see in this example is that 50% of the revenue is coming from just over 6% of the clients. 80% of the revenue is coming from 27% of the clients, and the bottom 50% of the clients are contributing 8% of the revenue. So you think about that, half of the clients are only contributing 8% of the revenue. That's a really out of kilter balance in your business, and you've got to be very conscious of that. So we could apply this in lots of areas of your business, and when we work with our private clients, we do get them to apply this 80-20 principle in a lot of areas. Here's one of the areas, and this is the one I want you to focus on. You've got pretty likely, I don't know your business situation for certain, but it's fairly likely you've got one or more people focused on new business development activities. It could be you, or it could be you've got a team of people focusing on it. Those people are very expensive in terms of overhead in your business, so it's critically important you've got them focused on high quality business development activities. So one of the mistakes people often make is they let the business development person decide who they're going to prospect and who they're going to talk to. That's actually not the best way to do it. What we recommend to our clients, and I would definitely be endorsing the same thing to you, just as not all your clients are equal, not all your prospects are equal either. So what you want to do is, instead of having your business development people focusing on a range of different clients, you want them working on a targeted list. So give them a list that's properly researched, where those target clients or target prospects are an ideal fit for what it is you do, and then having focused their business development resources very specifically on that targeted list, and not to go outside that targeted list unless they discuss it with you first. So you've got a very focused business development process running, not an ad hoc one, which is what I see in many of the clients when we initially engage with them, is the business development process does need a lot of systemization, and it needs focus. So that's what I'd invite you to do. Focus your business development people activities on a targeted list. Now, I mentioned on a couple of the previous videos, IPEX is coming up pretty soon. The year is starting to get traction already, and IPEX is only a few weeks away. It's amazing how quickly it goes. There's an interesting feature they're running called Future Innovations, and I haven't seen this run before in any print event, so this will be, I think it's the first off this has been done. It's certainly going to be first off for IPEX. It'll be really interesting. And what they're doing is they're going to show end-to-end workflows in 4 different areas: in 3D printing, in photo books, in printed electronics, and in digital print on demand. So when you register for IPEX in March, so you can see that's at the back end of March, make sure after you've registered, check out the content features. There's 4 really significant content features, and particularly check out the future innovations. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. I'm going to definitely make sure I make my way across to where they're running for at least 1 or 2 of the days that I'm down at IPEX. And we're going to be running obviously master classes in the middle of IPEX as well, something like the probably the 26th, 27th. I'm just finalizing those dates right now. There is a handout for this video, so you just get the core concepts. Useful to have those handouts, and if you've got them from the previous videos, this is another one to put with it. Depending on where you're watching this, you may be watching it on our blog, or you could be watching it someplace else. Just go to that URL you see at the bottom of the screen, so the printcoach.com/3, so it's the 3rd video in this series. Put in your contact details. It's an instant download, so it's a 1-page PDF download. Where it says video comment, I'm always interested in 2 particular things. What's your biggest insight or biggest takeaway or biggest action point from the video you've just watched? And I'm also interested in is if you've got a question related to your business development activities, so what you're doing in terms of new business development. I'd really be interested in finding out what that question is, because what I want to do on this blog, so which is where we host the videos, is provide content that's relevant to our target audience and answers questions that they've got. So that's all we're going to cover in this video. Have a brilliant week. Obviously it's one of a series of 10, so we'll be back next week with next video in the series. Look forward to seeing you then. Do make sure you come back. Have a brilliant week and a brilliant day, and we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.